Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over my lineup builds for today's truck series. And first of all, thank you for all the DMs and everything about this, because I don't know what it is about these types of sports like the MMA and NASCAR and the golf to some extent, but I think there are certain pockets of value in these types of sports where they just haven't been just brutally analyzed to the degree that some of these other sports have been. And it's not as if these things aren't paying a lot of money. It's not that it's not worth your time, because I mean, these tournaments are paying just as much as these baseball tournaments. It's a little, it's. I think it's also more manageable in that, yeah, you do have some ties sometimes, um, but you don't necessarily have to go 4 years before you win one of these things. And look, there's only 6 spots to fill. And even with only 6 spots to fill, there's still room to diversify enough away from the chalk to get yourself unique lineups and be competitive. You're not necessarily going to win all the time with the unique lineup, but you can be competitive. That's really all you need. And there are also, especially within NASCAR, I mean, there are ways to construct lineups based on the way certain tracks play out and the way people perceive the tracks will play out. That I think, I'm very happy that I got into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over what my breakdown, or the way I'm approaching this track and this race. And if you go through all of the videos for the NASCAR series this week, remember, we're all going to be at the same track, so the idea is going to be the same. It's a 1 mile track, and you're going to have about so what you're going to have is a big emphasis on dominators, right? Because there's a lot of laps, because it's a short track. Now, again, for those of you that are experts in NASCAR, I'm just probably speaking beginner speak, but it's important that everybody remembers from a fundamental lineup construction standpoint, that's what you have to do. You have to know how many points are available for you to be shooting for, and that's how you have to build your lineup. So you do want to, if you can, find at least two what we call dominators, or whatever you want to call people, drivers that can get to the front, because that means you get the possibility to have laps led and fastest laps. And quite honestly, there are 2 ways to get fastest laps. Number one is if you are just way in the back and you're just weaving through people, okay? But the easiest way to get the fastest lap is to be in the front, because there's no one in front of you, right? There's less obstacles. So that's usually where the fastest lap's going to come from. So you're going to lead lap and you get fastest lap. So that's where these dominator points come in really handy. Now, with that said, you have to build your lineup also with some place differential plays too, because not everybody can lead laps. And if you play everybody in the top 10, you're just giving up place differential upside from just too many people. So for today, probably going to get at least 2 guys that I think can get to the front. And fortunately, there are also some kind of chalky, whatever, so some pretty easy value plays to play that make your spend ups a little easier to come by. So you see my lineups. I mean, this is just one lineup that I played. This is the more extreme because it doesn't have more than one guy from the front. But Tanner Gray and Johnny Sauter, both are good enough that they can get to the front. Tanner Gray, really, really cheap price, actually. So between these 3 guys, probably 2 have reasonable chances to make the front, maybe 2.5, whatever it is. And you'll see that I have 3 kind of chalky value plays in here. Not Cameron Smith, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, and J.J. Yeley. You don't have to do this. You don't have to play both these guys in the same lineup, but I like doing that. It allows me to get up to these guys pretty handily, and I'm pretty confident in both these guys. J.J. Yeley more, I mean, he's going to be a guy who's not going to win anything in this spot, but he's good enough where he'll maybe sneak through to top 20 or something like that. That's really more than I need, honestly, 5,500. Sam Mayer is going to be really, really chalky, but again, this guy's going to be chalk for a reason from this position. So let me just go down some of these other guys and see kind of where they're going to fit in. So Klingerman is kind of in that I mean, I'll play him if I have to, but I don't think I have to. He doesn't exactly have all the place differential upside, and I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to get to the front enough to lead. So he's kind of in that middle ground. Now, these guys that are just not in this lineup, but, I mean, these guys are definitely in play, like Crafton, Moffitt, X, kind of on the borderline. So I'm going to probably play, like, Crafton and Moffitt all throughout my lineups. Maybe not in this particular one, but he's going to get some love. Sheldon Creed also. Can't play everybody, and I just think that what's going to happen is Moffitt is just going to put Creed in the hole, so to speak, and it's going to be tough for Creed. Now, then again, if Creed gets a jump on him, then I think that Creed can lead a bunch of laps, and that's, you know, unfortunately that's the deal. But the thing is that Creed doesn't just have to get in front of Moffitt to make it work, because he's got to hold off some of these other guys that are close enough to make him sweat. So I'm just not going to end up playing him, I don't believe. But you certainly can. But again, the way you want to construct, and again, I want to get full lineups out, is you want to pick one or at least one of these guys, you know, that can get to the front. Creed's one of them. Gillen, no. Rhodes is fine. Zane Smith is fine. Evan is fine. Ankrum is terrible. He's not going to get there from the 6, so he's just basically useless. This guy Kraus, I was playing a lot, and he was doing really, really well. And he's come across hard times in the last couple of races, but I'm going to go back to him in probably a good 30-40% of my lineups, and I'm playing about 20. So he might actually fall between the cracks. He's not really deep enough to get you place differential, not really that close enough to lead laps, so he might fall beneath the cracks. But I think he can compete for a top 5, so I think he's got really good upside, especially at low ownership. Other guys threw in here, these guys are all pretty bad. Dawson Cram might punt him a little bit. Timmy Hill might punt him a little bit. This guy's 5,100, might punt him a little bit. And again, the idea is that, you know, finding the plays is whatever. Okay, you know, I did my homework just like you guys can do your homework and looking at content, doing research. But that's just the beginning of it. You know what I mean? Like when you get the good plays, then you have to construct them right. So this is one example of probably on the fringe of what I'm going to do, right? Because Sauter's got to really get to the front, and so he's got to get by all these other guys that I talked about who are just not bad, you know, and on a 1 mile track. It's going to be tough for him to get past Crafton and Moffitt and Creed and Rhodes and Smith and these types of guys, even Enfinger. So 10-6 is tough for him, but he's doing really, really well recently, and he loves this track also. So I'm going to play him. I'm not going to play like 100% of him for all the reasons I just mentioned. Let me see what else what other lineups I can show you. So we can go through some of these. This is my basketball build. We'll get to that later. This is not my build. This is my it's actually not the worst lineup in the world, actually. But we'll tweak that a little later. So again, like this one's got Hill and Enfinger and Rhodes. This guy's had maybe 3 guys that can make the, or maybe even 4. This one is Smith and Hill in here, right? So you just see the way these construct. This one has 3. This is Smith, Crafton, and Hill. I think those have a lot of upside because like, if you get it right, I mean, it's not easy to get it right, but if you do get it right and they just kind of line up like, I'll explain what this means one of these days, but they just line up like Yonkers and just nobody pass anybody for like a while, you'll rack up a lot of points that way. And then, you know, just if chips fall in the right way and you finish where you got to finish, you can take the whole Magilla down. And see, this one, on the other hand, is a little less, you know, whatever, because it's got Moffitt. But then we got to get either Rhodes to get near the front sometimes, or we're going to rely on Sauter to loop all those other people. So again, this is I think this is why I like this. It's just so much like harness racing. And that's where that's honest. One of these days I'll talk to you about my harness racing days. That's a long time ago, where so much of the handicapping was figuring out who has the best horse, but just figuring how the race is going to go. Because sometimes in harness racing, if you like say they have the 8-hole and you just have no way to get into the race, it just doesn't matter how good your horse is. You have a big problem. Whereas same thing in auto racing, like if you need to get dominator points, but you just kind of jammed at the back between guys that you're never going to pass on a track that doesn't allow passing, you got a problem. So, one of these days I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring one of my old harness racing guys and we'll talk about how harness racing is kind of just like handicapping auto racing. I guess that's pretty much all I have. Again, I'm going to keep doing this as long as I keep getting the likes and the tweets and all this stuff. And maybe we'll take one of these down one of these days. I mean, I'm only doing it, you know, like a month or two, but you know, we're getting pretty close. We definitely have a positive ROI here, and I think you guys have a better positive ROI than I do, because from what I'm hearing from you guys are killing it. Maybe I'll take one down one of these days. But so far, making money, which is good, but learning process, which is obviously more important. All right, that's all I have, and yeah, good luck today, and you'll hear from me many times before the weekend is out.